Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of KYB, the podcast where we interview and highlight projects from the Ethereum ecosystem. Today, I'm joined by Paul and Peter, the co-founders of Project Mocha, as well as Raza, from the head of growth at Scroll. Paul, Peter, Raza, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this episode is particularly interesting to me because of the nature of Project Mocha, and it's slightly different than previous episodes in the past because we are also joined by Raza, head of growth at Scroll Ecosystem, where Project Mocha is deployed. So I'll take it firstly from Project Mocha and ask Paul and Peter to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their background, and then we'll also get to learn about Raza as well.
Okay. So my name's Peter Miner, co-founder of Project Mocha. I've been in the agri-tech space for the last 10 years, and Project Mocha is my second startup, but first on the blockchain, and happy to be here.
And Paul?
Hi, Sinkers. It's nice to be here. I'm Paul Gashora, the founder of Project Mocha, and just love everything about farming. I'm a farmer by birth, and love coffee farming and producing it. And it's nice to be here talking to your audience about what we're doing.
All right, sweet. And Raza, what about you? What brings you to the conversation?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it short. So I think that our mutual friend Tony, who is also building on Scroll, virtual finance and FX protocol, brought me and the co-founder Sandy to the continent. We visited Lagos and after that in Nairobi. And I think what brings me to the conversation is I spoke all of 15 seconds to Peter, and I was amazed by everything that he said in that short period of time. That I became an instant fan, and so I can touch upon a little bit how we at Scroll, how we want to support ambitious founders like Peter and Paul Gashora. But yeah, essentially met them. I was very impressed. After that, Paul came to one of the sessions that we had a few days after, or the day after, and essentially after our trip, we reached out and said, "Hey, we wanna support and see how we can help support launch Project Mocha," and that's how we came together.
All right, cool. And let's get into Project Mocha itself. So the name does give a hint. Paul did mention farming and coffee, so it's also a second hint. But let's actually hear what Project Mocha is about.
Paul, do you want to take it or take it?
Yeah, you can go first.
Okay. I'm saving the farmer for last. Yeah, so ideally a conversation is about coffee, and who doesn't like coffee? And the idea behind Project Mocha is just to sweeten the deal for everyone. Like Paul said, he's a coffee farmer, and Kenya, in a Kenyan context, Kenya was once known for coffee, still is known for coffee, but our production is not the levels it used to be. Like in the last time Paul and I have been alive, our production has decreased by around 60-70%. And ideally, it's a money issue. Smallholder farmers are not able to get the working capital that they desperately need for them to improve the productivity, the quality and productivity of the farms they have. So with our idea is to create a new way to finance coffee farmers based on the assets that they hold, and the assets they're looking at is their coffee trees, in a very, very high summary.
All right, Paul, is there anything you want to add to that?
He's done a good job. So it's just to say that our interest is actually to go the whole way and have this end-to-end cycle from the farm to the consumer, and make sure that, because those are the two people who are passionate about coffee, it's the farmer and the consumer, and see that those guys get to connect in a meaningful way without too many middlemen in between and loss of value. Like I think one of the reasons, if not the major reason, why coffee production locally has decreased is that seepage of value between the consumer and the farmer. And that's one area we'd like to bring this distance close, and also bringing a third party who is anyone who's passionate about coffee and its production and would want to invest in it, so that we have this nice ecosystem where people are able to not only consume but also invest in the coffee that they are consuming.
Okay. And can you walk us through a little bit of how it works in a more practical sense?
So ideally, from the farm side, we generally producers of coffee, and so locally we are organized into we have individual farmers and we have cooperatives, and we are able to aggregate our production and ship it out of the country. And from there, we lose contact, we lose touch of where our coffee goes as the producers. On the other end, consumers get their coffee with limited visibility on where this coffee is coming from, who's the producer, how that coffee was produced. And so how we thought of going about it was we identified the core problem for the farmer was access to capital. And so how we figured that was the farmer's production currently is really low. So in as much as we're still producing coffee, we are not up to our potential, and we can get so much more yield out of it, and it can increase our revenues. So we figured that the best way to stimulate this was to find a way to invest in production for the farm and open this investment to anyone across the world would be interested in earning a yield through coffee production, and get to inject these stimulus into the coffee industry, into the farming, and then be able to allow farmers to increase their production and increase our production as a country. So from a blockchain perspective, what we've done is we've tokenized these trees. Essentially, we've documented for these trees, accounted for them as assets, the trees and the production from our trees on the Scroll network. And that's one area I'm really buzzed about getting to work with Scroll and Raza. Raza is an amazing person to begin with. And so we've been able to bring these assets on chain and allow the investors to come in with whatever assets they have on chain as well, so that we're able to switch these two assets, and the farmer is able to get the capital he needs to start productivity today, and the investor is able to earn a yield from the farm. And yeah, we'll be able to now just kick off that flywheel for production.
I love that. It sounds like the oversimplification of it would be the tokenization of coffee production. But I'm particularly excited because in crypto, typically when we're talking about RWAs, real world assets, most people have in their minds like tokenized treasury bills, right? Just financial products. And for me, actually seeing projects building real world assets that are more tangible and not just financial products, to me, that's the exciting thing about the space and the things that we're doing. So really excited to talk more about this. One thing, I think it would be awesome if you could also share your screen and show us if you have anything to show us, like either the platform itself or how things would work. You can set it up. In the meantime, I want to ask the question of I can understand how and why you're doing this. I'm interested in learning the practicality of it. Like you decided, you got the idea and you decided that you want to build a Project Mocha and you want to do it like on chain, right? In blockchain rails. From there, did you go to Scroll? Like how did that decision be made? And maybe Raza here could also be of help in showing us like the other side of the equation, like from Scroll ecosystem point of view, how they perceive builders like that.
Okay. The journey of Project Mocha is actually a very interesting one. It sort of started as a group of friends trying to help out Paul's farm. So this concept came about back in 2019 when Paul invited me and a few of our close friends to the farm. And we tried to do just a simple crowdfunding among friends to help and pool liquidity around the farm. And this was back in 2019. But then flash forward to 2024, when I closed my previous startup. Paul had a bit of time on his land. The tech ideally was ready. People understand a bit more blockchain. Tokenization was actually people actually understanding that there are things you can do outside of just meme coins. And we felt at this point in time is when it's the right time to actually try and start to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you shared your screen, so I can't be helped, but actually be interested in being walked through it.
Yes.
So please do walk us through it.
Okay.
And Raza, will return to you in a bit on more like scroll particular things.
So how ideally we're looking at it is having a coffee bond around each individual tree and having an API around the productivity of that tree. So we try to make it as simple as possible because there'll be a lot of non-crypto users who join in as we move along. I've already connected my wallet just to make it a lot quicker and easier. So the idea is to have a marketplace of verified farms that have the assets of the trees. So we've gone to the farms, we've geotagged the trees, we look at the soil health, we look at the legality of who owns the farm, we've taken over management of the farm, that we can actually issue these assets as bond on our platform. So a user will ideally just come after KYC and everything, just come, ideally buy a bond. So the bonds, our utility token will be our MBT. So the MBT is a Mocha Bean token, which represents the future productivity of these trees. So you can buy using this MBT. Ideally, you're staking your MBTs into a tree. So you're using your beans to stake into a tree to get more beans in a high level something.
Okay.
So let me just do like 0.1 MBT, which represents 0.3 of a bond.
And the idea is that me as someone, let's say, who's buying these bonds, is that I'm buying the bonds that represent the tree and the productivity of that tree. And
Yes.
Project Mocha is kind of like the man in the middle that has vetted the farm, that it exists, that everything is working correctly. The person, like the farmer, is legit and has passed KYC. And I don't have to deal with any of that. I just go on the platform and buy the bond.
Yeah.
All right.
Easily buy the bond, then come and look at your investments. There's still a few things we're working on here, but ideally, you can actually see your investment, and when you're able to redeem, based on the production of that year, you should be able to redeem.
Redeem for coffee, you mean, or redeem the money?
That's something in the long term, we want people to be able to actually redeem for coffee, so you can pre-buy your coffee. But since you're basing it on yearly harvest cycles, so as the coffee is being sold, we'll be burning those tokens based on our production, and automatically that the beans will be converted to cash and you can redeem for cash. But in the future, you can actually be able to redeem this for coffee as well.
All right, I cannot wait for that future. I don't drink a lot of coffee myself, but my girlfriend does, and I would be, so happy to be able to say that. Well, I own a tree in Kenya that's producing coffee, and here you go. That's your coffee. That's amazing.
I used to be like you as well. I didn't really drink coffee till Paul introduced me to coffee.
All right, and I want to ask Raza here for a little bit. Coming from the scroll side, how do you treat, or not how do you treat, but like how do you perceive builders that are building something different than what we're used to in crypto, like DeFi, DEXs, and things like that?
Yeah, I think that we have all different entry points in Web3. Some came from the money, some came from, let's say, the ethics or philosophy, the values that we had. I think essentially you need to be radically honest in where product market fit is for a blockchain. And I think that as Scroll, we've identified payments, stablecoins, RWA, and DeFi being where there's product market fit, and we have our positioning there. So looking at what Project Mocha is, it's an RWA project. And the biggest challenge with an RWA project is that you'll often find, we were, like most of us were here in 2022, in the NFT hype, you had fractionalized ownership of houses and all these other stuff. The problem is that these were crypto people trying to invent projects or companies that would go in and tokenize, let's say, assets that were not in their areas of expertise. And this is the first thing that caught my eye when I was talking to Peter, but also Goshora later, which is essentially what you need for this to work is people coming from the industry that understand the problem. That's number one. But even specifying it more is that we were on the ground, on the continent, we were in Nairobi, and you need people from the local community that don't just understand the industry, but understand the local problems that everyone encounters as well. And so, just taking a side note, if you look at tokenizing gold, that has been tried multiple times. I would argue only one protocol that I know, it's actually in the Solana ecosystem, it's called Oro, but that is founded by someone whose family has been in the gold business for like a long time. And so for me, what caught my eye first is when I spoke with them is that there was a real story and narrative. They understood the problem in the industry. And so the most difficult part in an RWA is when it changes hands, or when does the value accrue and how do you accrue it back on chain. And so because not just the story and not just the founders, but everything was very sound, very well explained, it was to me honestly like a no-brainer. And I think that, you know, in the Ethereum ecosystem, what I love is that we can be very tech oriented. We love to build tech. We love to like look at tech. Mocha is the opposite. They come from a problem. I think that, and that's what, and I mean this in an extremely good way. They look at the problem. They look at the problem they want to solve. They understand the not just like one side. Usually it's only like the farmers or the consumers, or is it no? It's like thinking about this end to end, and blockchain should be abstracted away. So, you know, we as a Scroll, we're the infrastructure that supports them. You know, we support them emotionally, like whether it's in another way, we want to make sure that technically we power, you know, in the city analogy, you know, Paul and Peter are coming to build the buildings that will host the citizens. And we are, you know, the power net. We are the plumbing underneath. And so how do we approach, you know, projects like this? Whenever you look at the project, the founders are important, number one. Number two, I think that in the entire Ethereum ecosystem, there has been this radical shift lately, even more than ever, is that we understand we need to like solve real problems, have product market fit, and make sure, you know, we are building for impact, retail, consumer, or like, you know, there's a real operating model behind it. Then to answer your actual question, like that was like, you know, this may be atypical where it's usually in the DeFi and the DEXs, is that I think that this is the frontier. Like DeFi core pieces power like use case. Like you still need a DEX, you still need liquidity, you still need like other yield opportunities at some point. You know, MBT will need to know destinations. But I love DeFi. I'm a DeFi nerd, and so DeFi is almost like DeFi is becoming infra. So these DeFi core pieces are becoming. You see that in the tape, and so yeah, I'm super excited for that we are honored to support, you know, founders like Peter and Paul in their journey to launch Mocha. And it's a no-brainer to have like people like them backing it. Yeah, at the use case.
Yeah, 100% agree with at least from as much as I know them, that they're looking, and from reading the white paper as well, that they're seeing the problem end to end, right? Not just a portion of it, which is really valuable if you're building a project that it means to be around, right? And I want to touch on something that you mentioned. There are challenges in building RWA products, and I want to go more into that, but hear it from the builders themselves, right? So not just conceptually the challenge of building RWAs, but actually also practically, right? What are some of the challenges that you guys faced or are still facing in building Project Mocha?
Okay. I'll mention a few. The biggest one being education. It's still very okay. Now it's a lot easier. Like at least our script and I'm talking about it's getting better. So we are passing the mom test. She says she's going to invest. But yeah, educating people about what exactly is blockchain, what is tokenization. So by the time you're talking about Project Mocha, you're finding yourself in a defensive position. You're in a place where you're actually pulling someone in and they want to learn more. So that blockchain crypto education is a big gap, especially for, I would say, our target customers who are the daily global coffee consumers. And another one is still the same education, but on the farmer side. But on the farmer side, we're using a different strategy where we'll be using our pilot farm, Paul's farm. It's the same concept that other agricultural tech companies use, just set up a demo farm. With farmers, we're planning to do like a show and tell. We like pull them over, tell them, okay, in this farm, we're able to put in IoT sensors. They come and see the sensors and tell this money came from people investing foreign abroad, which is in the productivity. If you join to the platform, these are the benefits you get 1, 2, 3, 4, and they can actually see it. The third one is around compliance. At least right now, Kenya has two things. a regulatory sandbox that we've made an application for. So at least we're able to play around with this new investment instrument that we're creating. And there's also a new crypto bill that is currently going through the members of parliament, which will put at least Kenya in the forefront in this part of the continent in terms of crypto adoption. Yeah. Have I missed anything, Paul?
No. It's those are the three main issues. It's on education. From an RWA perspective, it's would be to show to the crypto crowd that what we are doing, like tokenizing trees, actually makes sense. And let me segue a bit and give you a practical view. Yeah, I like Gain Forest. We share them with them our data, and they're able to add this to this globe of data. And our stories, hard explain our story easily would be to show. Oh no, it's not loading. There we go. Are you guys seeing my screen?
I'm seeing your screen with yeah, I can see the screen as well as the mouse.
Okay, this one there.
Okay, yeah.
So it's for us as farmers, it's an issue of lack of data on our farms, our trees, our assets. So you find that globally, most of our data doesn't, like if you look at the globe, there's little data coming from Africa, just a bit around East Africa, mostly Kenya. And when it comes to the financial markets, the same issue. Banks don't see farmers as people who have assets. They don't recognize their assets, and they're not able to lend to them or give them funding. So how we decided to go about it was to first create this visibility on what's happening at the farm. So right here, this is our farm. As you can see there, and right here, the dots are the particular trees that we've tagged. So we literally had to geotag each of the trees manually.
So each of the pinkish dots that we see is an individual coffee tree, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And so we would like to just still blockchain still, I believe it's mostly a financial tool, and it has much. We also intend to use it in the similar manner. So what we did for us is, before we bring a token that doesn't have value, we figured that it would be best to have this underlying value, and our underlying value is our trees, because these are the productive assets. It's the reason why every year we get coffee produced. So looking at our trees as our proof of reserves, and then being able to issue a token that's backed by the productivity of these trees. So Peter mentioned an NBT, that's a bean token, which ideally represents it's a claim on a kilo of coffee from our inventory. So anyone who gets to invest in this is able to know that their money is backed not just by a token, but a token that represents actual value. In this particular case, it's our coffee, which we, being the farmers, have the assets to really create this underlying value for the investor. So yeah, that's going towards the challenges in terms of having to go over and above to prove that we have the goods, which is good, because that's ideally how the traditional financial world was based. It was about being able to prove that you have the assets to back any finances that you're going to get. So we see ourselves as being able to now take this one step forward and digitally represent all the smallholder assets who previously were excluded from the financial ecosystem. And now they are able to like, imagine farmers are being able to recognize all these trees as tokens, and tokens that actually have value and can be traded for liquidity. And so that's how we're looking at bringing farmers on chain and bringing assets on chain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And I want to ask something which is not entirely related to crypto, let's say, or Web3, but it isn't related to the conversation. And that is, being a farmer yourself and being in Kenya, I'm wondering, what does the landscape look like in terms of financing for a farmer in Kenya? Like, is financing available on a local level, or is it more, barred or difficult to access? And does this approach help farmers raise capital, or fund the labor and everything they need to have a product?
Yeah, from a local context, a farmer, it's really farmers, especially smallholder farmers, are excluded from the traditional financial system, because like we understand credit and loans drive most of the growth and development in developed economies. Likewise for our economies as well. It's just that for us, we hardly able to access this capital. So I'm an accountant by background, and I got to see on one end how large-scale farmers are able to get books of account. They get accountants, they got us, hire a farm, come up with the books of account, and you're able to put all your assets on a balance sheet. And this is approved, and you use that as your document that will help you access capital. On the other hand, smallholder farmers don't need proper books of account. So you hardly find when the banker asks for audited books, they don't have that. They don't have farm records just to show how the kind of effort they're putting in. So they miss out on the key things that the financial system requires for them to get to access this capital. So without these records, without financial services like audits and accounts, proper accountants, it's been hard for the smallholder farmers to access capital. But we see it more as an issue of access, because they have the assets. There's no difference between a large farmer and a smallholder farmer. Both have the same assets. Both are doing the same job, producing coffee, and so both should equally be able to access capital based on the size of their assets, which is what we're trying to work on here.
Yeah, so in a way, like Project Mocha is aiming to kind of like even out the scale, so even smaller farm holders have the same level of access to capital as bigger ones.
Yes.
And I really hope you do. And going back to the more international or crypto Web3 related aspects, I want to go to the choice of building on Scroll. Not so much into what drove you to build on Scroll, which is also interesting if you want to touch more on that and cover more ground there, but also on the kind of support available to you as builders on Scroll. And I want to hear it from you guys first, from the builder's perspective, but then I also want to hear Raza's take on that.
Okay. The biggest one, as I would say, is the support. Because as Raza mentioned, I didn't know who Raza was at the time I was talking to him. I just remember like one of my team members said, there's someone asking what we're doing. So I got pulled over and had a conversation with Raza. The next thing I know, there's a mic on me, there's a camera on me, say the same script. Then get to understand what he's doing, his long-term vision, and what we're doing in the long-term vision. So the support from just him and the entire team has been overwhelming and surprisingly very well. We really appreciate them. Not just on the technical front, even just going through like what you're thinking, short-term marketing efforts, long-term marketing efforts, the long-term viability of a project is something we are very happy to be working this journey Scroll. Other one is also on the technical guidance and so at least first the docs are easy to understand. At least the EVM comfortability is very, very easy for us. So even what we've done before jumping on Scroll, we didn't need to do much integrations. The fact that they have ZK for their fast transactions and is something we really enjoy. The cheapness of the microtransactions is something we're really like looking forward to, enjoying a lot more once we go live. Those are the two main areas that we get, the support and the strength of architecture.
All right. And Raza, is there anything you want to...
Paul, maybe suppose, let me add this. Like the biggest thing for me was Raza and Tony, just from one conversation, they really got to understand what you're building from, not from a tech perspective, but really from ground up, the accounting side, they understood why a small farmer requires a balance sheet. And it just took one conversation each, and they were like, okay, you guys are doing something big. They actually got to see more than what we were seeing in our products. So it's been really easy, really great engaging with people who understand what you're building and are really, to the core, really cool human beings who are out there to make this work for us as well.
Awesome to hear that. And Raza?
Yeah, I just want to like start there. I think that the feeling is absolutely mutual. I think that in my current role, and even in the past 5 years, I've had the privilege of meeting many startup founders, and I think that at Scroll, what I love, as soon as I got into a position where I was part of the leadership, I think that we were all aligned that we are here to level the playing field. But I often am also like very frank. I was also very frank when I was in Nairobi. So that I don't have basis treasury, so that forces me to make decisions. And so, and what I essentially mean with that is, when we were on the continent, I was very clear. Like, I'm not gonna play the game of like, or 1K grant here, 1K grant there, or T-shirt. I want to come in with meaningful support, and that actually, like, obviously, finance is important, but it goes further and beyond that. This is for me a long-term relationship that we're building, and it needs to be mutual beneficial. And honestly, I think that one thing that gets overlooked is, um, you know, if you call the other person, do they pick up? What is like? Are you value aligned? Are you value extractive or not? Or how do you come in? Sometimes, like Peter and Gashora mentioned about like the technical support. Like for me, like someone might think it's a dig or a shake. I was actually super impressed that these guys came from the industry and were like, there's only one, like at the start they were like, there's one thing we need to figure out, which is like the tech side thing. I was like, wow, that's something I usually talk to founders who are like, I have this sophisticated, product that I built. No one is using it yet because they're not actually solving the problem. And so for us in the process of, let's say, selecting founders is, are they aligned with our value? We are primarily focused on the global south. And even that is huge. It's not like there are many talented founders. And there I often actually say no to founders because I can't come in with meaningful support. And so for us, it means, like I said in that city analogy, it is not my intention or our intention to have Scroll stamped everywhere. Scroll is successful when her founders are successful. And so I'm just looking at two talented founders in our ecosystem. And we understand that what value aligned means is that we need to make these kind of founders successful that are building for impact. But then obviously I can give you like a more dry answer, right? Like, oh, there's a framework where what's product market fit. Like, we're not looking at like, we want, like Peter mentioned multiple times, like the value accrual and Paul as well, like the value accrual, like Paul, ironically, my background is accounting too. So is it backed, is the token backed by real valuable assets? What's the revenue like? And that's the new meta as well, right? Like we see all these buyback programs, revenue, etc. So at Scroll, we envision that we will be able to become a home for ambitious founders, talented founders that are building for impact, like these two gentlemen. And you need to start somewhere. And so I think that the next thing I will say is that we believe in a founder to founder network. And so Tony was actually the first one that I personally was able to support and bring in. And he is actually, the fact that I'm in contact and have a relationship with both of them is because of Tony. So that was like the fruit that's the fruit that we reaped from the founder to founder strategy. And what I hope is that these two will become so successful that even without Scroll or me being in the picture, they are able to support other founders that are coming from the local community and are able to push it forward like that. And I think that that's when the real network effect starts. And that's what our current, let's say, philosophy and vision is at Scroll.
Yeah, more of a targeted approach to founders rather than a spray and pray kind of strategy. Respectable. Okay, and besides the support available from the Scroll foundation or ecosystem side, there's also Scroll DAO, and I'm wondering if you guys, if Peter and Paul, you've had any dealings with Scroll DAO, and if you had or if you received any support from that, and if you have, how did that work out? What did you think of having to deal with a DAO?
Funny enough, as in, I remember just after meeting Raza, I just started joining the Scroll DAO calls just to find out what everything is going on. Then they had this accelerator program of training people about the DAOs. So I actually got accepted as one of the DAO members. So it's a 7-week program where they're teaching people what governance on chain actually means. And I've really come to appreciate and have a more both technical and human understanding about the Scroll DAO. Their long-term vision of fully decentralizing the protocol and just ideally vibing with the other delegates. Like I came to understand the role L2B plays in the Security Council. I'm not a technical guy, but last week in one of the calls, I deployed my first smart contract just to understand the whole thing behind it. And the fact that this is going to be also open source just after the course is fantastic. It shows that even as a DAO, they are trying to incorporate more people into blockchain, because at the end of the day, it's a human thing. Governance is just on-chain management of people. And being in a position where even I can be able to like get into that room and contribute is something I've like just maybe double down on Scroll.
Sweet. I wish more founders and builders would be participating in the governance of their respective ecosystem, because really that's what it's all about, right? It's figuring out how we can all coordinate together to enable and empower the builders building on the respective chain, in this case, Scroll. Cool. And expanding a little bit on that, because the DAO and I'm curious to also hear Raza's thoughts on what I'm going to say, but in my opinion, the DAOs of each ecosystem are there, so the community itself and the builders building on the ecosystem can leverage it to improve their lives on the chain, right? Be that through builder support programs, through grant programs, through any initiative that has as an end result the benefit of the ecosystem, right? Even if it's an indirect benefit to you, if Scroll ecosystem grows and there's more users, then that probably will mean that some of those users will find their way into Project Mocha. So I'm curious, as L2B is also a delegate in many ecosystems, including Scroll, we're always trying to think of what's the benefit, what's the benefit of the builders, right? And what are some things that the DAO could be doing to help the builders of the ecosystem? And I want to ask that question to you, coming from a builder's perspective and with somewhat starting to be involved in the DAO. What do you think are some things that the DAO could do, some initiatives that they could start to actually help builders on a very practical sense?
The first major one would be like a productive feedback loop. Have ways that builders such as myself or interested in building a Scroll can have some sort of direct communication channel and get feedback. The other one possibly would be, at least now that I've read through the documentation, it's very clear. Like the way they structured their communication, the way they structured their doc is very clear. So maybe just a bit more communication on that to builders. But one thing I have come to realize and come to see is that previous DAO decisions are impacting, like having a positive impact on just not only us as a startup, but even here in the ecosystem in Kenya. Like there was a proposal that went about supporting local nodes, and there's a local node here in Kenya that we'll be speaking again this Friday through because of the support of that program. Then you have the open economy proposal that went through. Then you have like friends of ours called Antigrow, who were through that program and we're actually like building and working together. So there are certain decisions that are made by the DAO before us that we are benefiting from us, and hoping by us or those doors being open to us, we can open the doors to other people.
All right. And from Scroll's point of view, Raza, how do you view the DAO, and how do you ideally want the DAO itself to think about those kinds of initiatives?
Yeah, I think that when it comes to support, you can essentially, or initiatives, you can classify it in 3 categories: social, technical, and financial. I think that what Peter mentioned is that we launched our open economy program as a startup school at the start of this year here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And essentially, when you talk about feedback loop that Peter is mentioning, or other types of support like go-to-market, product design. Really, how do you make sure that you get real users to your app? We noticed that that's a very hands-on approach. So we flew out 12 teams. Season 2 is actually starting in a week from now. It's an IRL campus program. You get invited like Antigrown. And we essentially have a light touch approach mixed with a high touch approach. And what does that mean is we give you a room, we give you a space, come in, lock in. And the first thing that we say is forget about token, forget about all these things. What is the product that you're building? Very much product oriented. How are you going to reach your users? Do you understand the distribution channels? Do you understand what brand is? And so we piloted this program and it was very successful. 4 projects came out of it that will raise or have raised already funds. And for us, what we noticed how the DAO can help is in the aftercare program. So the labs, as it functions, like runs the open economy program, but as part of like the founder to fund network, you need continuous support for these founders. You need to ensure that like, it's not again at an investment or like you have an intense program like this and then, hands off. What we're noticing is that how do we make sure that in the aftercare program, do they need audit support? Do they need to meet other founders? Like it's great that Mocha meant Antigrown or knows Antigrown. And how can they work together? Because I always mess up this saying, but when the tide rises, all boats rise. That's what we're aiming for. So having an aftercare program that really curious, like, and it's sometimes as simple as like, where does the conversation, like Peter mentioned rightfully so, where does the communication happen? Where do these founders find each other? How do they talk to each other? And making sure that they're participating in creating social cohesion. On a technical level, we've launched or we are like, there's a proposal to launch like a fund for audits. So, like when you're starting out, you kind of want to be, also know like this is not just like a fund that pays for audit, but it guides you through the process. Like, what do you need to like? What does an audit mean? How many rounds do you need? And how do you disclose it? And then, what my dream is, we're not there yet, is that there will be an eco fund that will like if you go through the program or you go in parallel to a program like Mocha, that there will be sort of like a stamp of approval by Scroll, so that when we say, hey, this is a project that we invest in, this is a company we believe in, these are founders we believe in, that other VCs will come in as well, and that we were able to create distribution channels for them, so that you might not have the funds to like go to SF or New York. These are like popular places for founders to go raise capital or gain credibility for their company. And that's what we want to serve. So on a social, technical, and financial level, we're designing these programs to come in and support from the DAO perspective.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's good to hear. You're thinking both on a high level, but also on the practical about how the DAO can play a role in what you're thinking. Right, as we're nearing the top of the hour, I want to go back to Project Mocha and with a more future outlook, let's say. So I would love to hear where you are now in terms of the plans that you have and what does the future hold? Like, what should we be expecting from Project Mocha in the near and long-term future?
In the short term, we are currently on testnet on Scroll. We should be going live soon. So looking forward to seeing guys like you invest in real coffee production. So that's the short term. Finalize with the demo farm, which is Paul's farm. So we'll be bringing 2,000 coffee trees on chain. So we're doing 2,000 bonds, each bond at $100, but you can buy as a minimum as $1. Medium term, we'll start scaling up to more farms and increase the productivity of this farm. So in the long term, we want to create a marketplace for agri-finance. And Kenya has about 204 million coffee trees. So imagine bringing all those trees on chain, we could unlock close to $10 billion in asset capitalization. Yeah, so that's the long term. Just increase that's not in Kenya. We have Kenya, Rwanda, we have Brazil, Venezuela. So ideally, the global south that still Scroll is supporting is the regions we are looking at. And that's the regions where coffee production is in. And eventually, who knows, we could actually move on to other agricultural chains, because whatever we're doing with coffee can be done with wine, can be done with cocoa, can be done with cashew nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. And do you have any like not dates but a rough timeline in mind? When can we expect to see something?
I in the long short term, less than 2 weeks, we should be live. Yeah. So look, I think by the time this podcast is going out, we should be live actually.
Yes, more like, or we'll make it so it's
Yeah.
nice, like coincides with your lunch date.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. And Raza, from Scroll side, like I know, I can imagine that it's going to be plenty, but on the like if you were to focus more on the developments or the RWA side and supporting builders, what does the future hold?
Yeah, honestly, we want to double down on the progress we have and like refine them and perfect them. I'm a huge Bruce Lee fan. He said, I fear not the man who has practiced 1,000 kicks once, but practice one kick 1,000 times." And so we are really focused on making the founders that we're backing, like Mocha, be successful. That is important. That is not a few weeks thing, a few months thing. I hope years and years to come. In parallel to that, like I said, Open Economy Season 2, we have starting in 1 week from now, actually 5 days. We are working on our DeFi core pieces. I'll drop some alpha here. We are launching our own native stablecoin, yield-bearing stablecoin. So Scroll will launch a yield-bearing stablecoin that or yield-bearing stablecoin that we will support. We have obviously ETHFI Cash. So that is like, I think now upwards of 200 million TVL. But when you look at payments, DeFi, stablecoins, and RWA, we have a bunch of things going on there. And this is all geared towards everything is a flywheel that supports each other. That's how it's designed. So when we have deeper liquidity or yield-bearing assets, that benefits Project Mocha for whoever is like an NBT holder. You need, like I said, there's only a few product market fits in crypto. DeFi is one of them, and you want destinations for that. And so I'm very excited about what's left of 2025. But it's really, it's still day one. We're still building out here. It's a very long journey.
Yeah.
I guess like the last thing I'll say is that once let's say I see Mocha fly out there and it increases our capacity, I would love to support another set of founders like Mocha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right. It's a marathon, not a sprint. All right, so I want to ask if there is any call to action that you guys would like to make. Now it's you have the spotlight, so if there's any ask you have of the community, Peter, Paul.
Yeah. Invest in coffee. So you can actually do this from our website, depending on what time this goes live. There's current waitlist as well on our website. If not, you can do this. So if the platform be live, you can invest direct. And you can follow us on our Twitter, Project Mocha HQ, to get regular updates on what we're doing.
Perfect. And both of those links will be in the description of the video below. Well, Peter, Paul, Raza, it's been great talking to you. Really looking forward to seeing Project Mocha and how it develops, and ultimately and hopefully it's a success. And I would love to have you guys back on a couple of months from now and see how things have gone, right? It's not, also for us, it's not just a one-time thing. We are interested in actually seeing the Ethereum ecosystem develop, and we'd love to circle back and talk about hopefully a flourishing future then. Until that time comes, thank you so much for having been on the podcast, and thanks everyone who has joined and listened in.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.